Welcome to Latin with Andy Code Breakers. Today's lesson we're going to be talking about verbs. Now that we've learned a good bit of the code, let's see if we can encrypt our own message. Let's say we want to say the good sailor gave a large reward to the friend. Okay, here are the 4 steps to encrypting your own code. First of all, bubble off the words you want to change into code, into Latin words. So let's do that first. Bubble off the good sailor gave a large reward and to the friend. We do this because even though there are more words in English, that's not necessarily the case in Latin. Because remember, one thing, for instance, is that we don't have any translation for the, a, or an. So we can kind of put those into other words, bubble them off. Alright, now our next thing to do is to find the jobs. So we're just looking at this in English, finding the jobs, pretty easy. So first we find the action, which is gave, so that's our verb. Sailor is the one doing the action, subject, and notice good is modifying it, describing it. Our direct object, the sailor gave what? The sailor gave the reward, so that is our direct object. And then we also have an indirect object. Remember, even though to might be considered a prepositional phrase in English, when we want to encrypt it into our code, we use to or for and put that in the dative, so that's indirect object. And last thing we didn't mark was large, that is also modifying reward. Now what we can do is do all the identification we want and pick out the forms we want to use. So let's start with the nouns, those are the important ones. So starting with sailor. Okay, what do we know about sailor? Well, we know that is the subject, first of all, so that gives us the case, and we can see how many there are. And knowing the Latin word nata, we can find its gender. So this is we're going to need a masculine singular nominative form, because there's only one sailor, and it's doing the action. Which means that if we want sailor to match with gave, we want it to do the action in our code, then we need gave to also be singular. Cool. Next, let's look at reward. What form do we need for that? Well, reward, remember, the Latin word for it is premium primii. That's a second declension neuter noun. So we know the gender. And since we need it to be a direct object, and there's only one reward, we can find the form super easily that we need. Neuter, singular, accusative. Last thing is our indirect object, to the friend. Our word for that is amicus amici. Remember, that's a masculine noun, and we need a singular, because there's only one friend, and then dative for it to be indirect object. Now all we have left is our adjectives. And remember, adjectives match exactly in gender, number, and case with the noun they modify. So, since good modifies sailor, it's going to be masculine singular nominative. Pretty fast and easy, right? And since large is modifying reward, it's going to be neuter singular accusative. Awesome, now we can use our cipher, our key, and our vocab bank down here to translate the sentence. Let's do it. Let's start with our subject, and we're going to put the good right after it. The word for sailor is nata natai, and we need the masculine singular nominative, so that's just nata. The masculine singular nominative form for bonus uses second declension endings, so that's just bonus. So we have nata bonus, and then let's put large next. So the stem for large is magn with an n. So the neuter singular accusative ending for that is an See, we're kind of encrypting our sentence here, it's coming together. And then reward, neuter singular accusative. Thankfully, the nominative and the accusative match, so we can basically use the first form that's on our vocab bank. So that's premium. Now all we have left is our indirect object, and then we like to put our verb at the very end. So amicus we put in our masculine singular dative form, which is amico. And then all we have to do is add in our verb, which is in your vocab bank, which is dedit. So our total sentence is nata bonus magnum premium amico dedit. Isn't that pretty cool that we can encrypt our own sentence? So remember the 4 steps though. First, bubble off the words, find the jobs, find the forms, do the identification part, and then finally translate. Great job, guys. Now we're going to talk about my favorite thing to translate, which are verbs. So remember, just like nouns, with nouns we had 3 things we would find about nouns. Well, for verbs, there are actually 5 different things we learn about verbs. But thankfully we don't have to worry about all of these. We're just going to be focusing on a few at a time. One of those two of them that we know so far actually are person and number. We've already talked about those. Remember, person can be first, second, third. Number can be singular or plural. Next comes voice. Don't worry about this one. This one just tells basically whether or not the subject is actually doing the action or not. It can either be active or passive, but we're not going to worry about that one right now. The piece that we're definitely going to be looking at is tense. Tense equals time. Just remember that. Tense equals time. And there are a few different options for this. We have present, imperfect, future, perfect, pluperfect, and future perfect. So we're just going to look at these one at a time and show how they work in our code. And then finally there's mood. The options for mood are indicative, subjunctive, and imperative, which kind of tell what kind of sentence you're saying. But we're also not going to worry about that one yet. So right now we're just going to be focusing mostly on our tense. Let's take a look. Remember how we talked about nouns belonging to families, or the big word for that was declension? Well, verbs do the same sort of thing. They belong to things called conjugations, which is kind of like a family, but since verbs have a few more possibilities of endings than nouns, they kind of need their own office building or something. So we could say that a conjugation is a company or a business of endings that a verb can have. The cool thing is, just like nouns, every single verb only belongs to one conjugation. There are only 4 possibilities, 4 big businesses of verb endings. Just like nouns, when we want to start conjugating a verb, we have to start by finding the stem. And we do that by going to the second form that you have on your vocabulary cards. Remember, there's 4 that we put there. You go to the second one and you take off the A-R-E on the end. The rest of the word is the stem. So let's look at this example word, amo, amare, amawi, amatus, and let's see how it is conjugated. The first step to conjugate lado, ladare, ladawi, ladatus is to find the stem from the second form there, laudare. Take off the A-R-E and we have the stem, laud. So let's copy that 6 times. Verbs are kind of nice because there's only 6 and not 10 we have to copy. Alright, now here's what we're going to do. We're going to take something called the conjugation identifier. The piece of the verb that tells you which office building it works in. And in this case, it's going to be the A with the macron, the first letter in your A-R-E statement. And so that one is going to go on all but the first of your stems. So start with the second person singular and add on an A with a macron all the way down. That A, all A. Now, all we have left to do are add on the personal signs, the piece that tells us what person and what number our verb is going to be. And remember, this is what I told you to memorize, this OST mustis unt. So we're going to add that on to the rest of our verb there. OST mustis unt. Notice, the very first one, first person singular form, is the first form on your 4 pieces at the top. Lado, right? So that's pretty interesting. So now we know that with other verbs, we're always given that first person singular form. Now let's translate our forms. This right here that we've been working on is called the present tense, which means that the action is happening right now. So we need to write our translations as if they're happening right now. So first person singular, we're going to start with I praise. And then we can have you praise. Third person singular, he, she, it praises. First person plural, we praise. Second person plural, you praise. And finally, third person plural, they praise. So really it's not too hard, it's just taking those pronouns, those person that we found off of the personal pronoun sign, and adding on our definition of our word, praise. Pretty easy, right? Good job. Now that we've practiced, we can get to identifying our forms using this cipher. Alright, let's look at the first one, la dot. Now we have a lot more we can identify off of this word. First of all, the stem, which is laud. And then, do you see the A there? That's what we called the conjugation identifier. And then we have a T. What does the T tell us about the verb? It tells us that this is a third person singular verb, which would translate as he, she, it, add on the verb meaning, which is praise. So he, she, it praises. Now we have amamus. The stem for this word is am, as you can see on your cipher. The A is the conjugation identifier, and then we have a mus. Not the animal with the horns, but the moose ending. This would show us that this verb is first person plural. So we'll translate as we love. How about laudatis? Looking at the stem and then the conjugation identifier, everything that we have left is a tis, so that is our personal sign, which shows us that it is second person plural. We would translate this verb as you praise. And now finally we have one more, amas. Stem is am, the a is the conjugation identifier, and then we have an s, the letter s, which shows us that this is a second person singular verb. Isn't that kind of cool that just one little letter on the end of your verb can show you so much about your verb? This will show us that this translates as you love. Awesome work, guys. I am about to show you how you can manipulate time with the sheer willpower of your mind. And not by any means of a time machine, no, but by an interrupting sheep I named Steve. Actually, we're going to be using something called tense. Tense means time. It shows when the action is happening in the sentence. Is it happening now? Has it already happened? Is it going to happen? This is how we are going to manipulate time, and Steve is going to help us. So if you look at this example verb, we can see that a BA is inserted in the middle. That's where Steve likes to kind of interrupt the middle of the word. If you want to say amat, then sometimes you'll go ama ba, and then he'll just insert his little noises in there in the middle. Yeah, okay, thanks, Steve. But of course, by using that, we have manipulated time and changed our action from the present to the past. So thank you, Steve. We're going to talk about how to conjugate this and try some of our own. To start conjugating our verb in this tense, we have to start by adding the stem once again. So for laudo, we add on laud all the way down. Laud, 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 laudod. And then we add on our conjugation identifier, just like always. But this time we're going to put it on all the forms, including the first one, to give Steve the interrupting sheep some room to add in his sounds. So we'll put on that A with the macron all the way down. Now it's Steve's turn. He can add in that BA all the way down as well. BA, BA, BA. You can see it in the examples. Now all that's left is add on our personal endings. Now here's the thing. You have to be careful because there's one little difference we have to watch out for. And actually it's kind of like sum. We've already worked on copying sum, so the first person singular personal ending is going to be an M instead of an O. That's the only difference we have to watch out for. Let's see if we can translate these forms. Okay, so here's the deal. Steve the interrupting sheep can only do so much. He can move time and stuff, manipulate it, but he can't make these actions a completed action in the past. He makes them a continuing action in the past. That's why this tense is called the imperfect tense, and not past tense or perfect tense. So all that means is that we add in a was or a were into our translation plus an ing onto our action. So if we were going to translate this in the first person singular, we translate I was praising. You see how if you imagine that, you can imagine it happening in the past, but continually. It's not something that just happened and then ended. So that's what Steve does. For the second person singular, we'll translate you were praising. Third person singular, he, she, it was praising. First person plural, we were praising. Second person plural, you were praising, like you a group. And then third person plural, they were praising. So just make sure to add in that BA to turn it into the imperfect tense, and then also to add in a was or were plus the ing on the action. Good job. Let's see if we can identify these forms, watching out for Steve the interrupting sheep. Our first verb is portabam. Porto, portare means to carry, and it's a first conjugation, so it has that ARE in the second form. So if you were to take off the ARE, we would have port as the stem. So now we can see that A conjugation identifier, and then look, there's a BA. What does that mean? That means that this verb is imperfect. And lastly, we have an M on the end. What does the M stand for? This verb is going to be a first person singular imperfect tense verb, which would translate as I was carrying. Cool. Now we have amabatis. Stem is am. A is the conjugation identifier. We see that BA in there. And then we have a tis. The tis says that it's second person plural, and the BA says it's imperfect, so second person plural imperfect tense. This verb would translate as you were loving. See, so it's basically just like we were doing with the present tense, we just have a BA in the middle. Steve the interrupting sheep. Thanks, Steve. Now we have laudabant. Laud is the stem, A is the conjugation identifier, BA stands for imperfect, and the NT says it's third person plural. So this will translate as they were praising. Last one, portabamus. It looks like a long word, but us code breakers, we can pick out the pieces. This is why I like to think of Latin as breaking the code, because of all these little pieces that show us so much about our verb. The stem is port, the A is the conjugation identifier, BA stands for imperfect, and the mus is not an animal, but stands for first person plural. So this is a first person plural, imperfect tense verb, which would translate as we were carrying. Sweet. Verbs are some of my favorites because this changing time thing is really so fun. Alright, now let's change time again and go to the future this time. All we have to do if we want to switch our verb from the past or the present to the future is basically just to add in a BI into the middle of our verb. This is called a tense identifier. So we add in that BI just right before the personal sign and it changes it to the future. Now there are a couple of exceptions we need to go over. Once again, if we want to conjugate this verb in the future, we find the stem, which is laud. So let's copy that all the way down. Laud, 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 laud. Add on the A conjugation identifier on all the forms. And now, to change it to future, we add on a BI instead of a BA. Steve gets the BA, but we're going to be adding on a BI to change it to the future. Now there are a few small differences. On the very first one and the very last one are the two differences. The first one just adds the letter B. No BI, it's just a B. And then we're going to add on our personal sign after that, so it'll make sense in just a minute. I know it looks a little bit weird. Now in the middle forms, we add on a BI, so second and third, BI, first person plural, second person plural, BI. The last one, however, instead of a BI, we're going to have a BU. So this will make it super easy to identify. However, we just need to make sure and memorize that so that we can actually easily identify that. So it's BU. Now we add on our personal signs. OST, mus, tis, unt. Now let's translate. To make it into the future, we add on shall or will, and then our action. Pretty simple, right? But we've changed time and moved it to the future. Pretty cool, right? Let's identify these forms, making sure to watch out for those exceptions. Thankfully though, we have our key to look at just in case. Our first form is laudabis. Stem is laud, conjugation identifier is the A, the BI stands for future, and the S shows us that it's going to be second person singular. So how will we translate this? If laudo means praise, we will translate this as you will praise. Next word, amabimus. Stem is am, then we have the A, then the BI, which shows us that it's future, and then amus, which shows us that it's first person plural, future tense. We'll translate that as we shall love. Now how about dabetis? Okay, well the stem for this one actually is just the letter D. Kind of crazy. And then the A there is the conjugation identifier. We have a BI and then a tis. This word means give. So if this is a second person plural future tense verb, we'll translate as you will give. Alright, last one. Portabunt. Stem is port. Conjugation identifier is the A. The BU, wait, what is that? Remember, this is one of our little exceptions. BU just likes to be a little bit unique. But remember, it's easy to identify. The BU is future. And then we have an NT, which shows us that it's third person plural, and then future tense because of the BU. So we'll translate this one as they will, and then porto means carry, so this is they will carry. Awesome work, guys. Let's try translating from Latin to English. Now, we can identify a lot more about our verb than we could in the past. But watch out, because in this sentence you could see any type of verb. We've learned 3 different tenses: present, which is happening now; imperfect, which was happening in the past; and then of course future, which happens in the future. Pretty self-explanatory. Let's look at this sentence starting with fili. Okay, stem is F-I-L-I, and then the I after that is the ending, which shows us that it's either masculine singular genitive or masculine plural nominative. Alright, we're not sure exactly which one it's going to be. Next one is going to be agricolum. Okay, so stem is agricol, ending is am, so this is a masculine singular accusative ending. Alright, so we have a direct object, that's good. But what is the subject? Is it going to be in our verb, or is it filii? Well, it is possible that there might be 2 possible translations for this sentence, so we may have to test a few things out. Let's first identify everything we can about laudabant. Okay, first of all, we can find the stem, which is laud. Okay, then right after that, we see the conjugation identifier, the a, and then we have a ba, which, what does that show us? Remember, that's Steve the interrupting sheep, changing this from the present tense to the imperfect tense. And then we have an nt, so this is going to be third person plural, imperfect tense. Cool. Okay, let's, first of all, for this verb, let's just translate it as if it was there by itself. Remember, a lot of verbs, at least Latin verbs, can be translated as if it was its own sentence. So if we were to just translate it by itself, it would be, they were praising. Okay, now we have to decide whether or not we're going to replace they. Okay, first, let's try out the genitive singular on filii and see if that works out in our sentence. It may actually work out, we'll see. Alright, if that is so, then we are going to translate starting with they. So they were praising the farmer of the sun. They were praising the sun's farmer. Maybe if the sun had a farmer working his land, but that's a little awkward, so let's try the other option and see if we get anything better. So if filii is masculine plural nominative, it replaces the they in our verb. So that would translate as the sons were praising the farmer. That makes a little bit more sense, to be praising the farmer. So we're going to go with that option. Be sure to choose the best option you can when translating from Latin to English. Okay, let's try one more sentence, then I promise we'll be done for now. The sentence is amicum laetum amabis. Let's start with amicum. Stem is amic, then we have second declension masculine, so this is going to be masculine singular accusative. Okay, we have a direct object, cool. And now we have an adjective, and since there are no other nouns it could be modifying, laetum most likely will be masculine singular accusative as well, but let's check the ending. The stem is light, and then is the ending. So yes, looking at our cipher, we see that this is a masculine singular ending as well. Masculine singular accusative. Alright, now let's identify everything we can about our verb. The stem is am, we have the a conjugation identifier, just like we always identify, and then this time we have a bi. Remember what the bi stands for? The bi changes this verb to future tense. And then we have the letter s. So this is a second person singular future tense verb. How would we translate this verb if it were a sentence by itself? We would probably translate it as you will love. And actually, since we didn't find any other nouns that had the option of being nominative, you are probably going to be the subject of this sentence. Alright, so let's try and translate. If amicum means friend and laetum means happy, then we'll translate this as you will love a happy friend. See, look at this. We're breaking up the code into smaller pieces so it can be successfully broken. Good job, code breakers. Fantastic work, code breakers. You guys are becoming experts at this. Subscribe for more videos if you want some more code breaking fun. Purchase and download the worksheets if you've not done that already to continue to enhance your Latin studies. Keep watching for more code breaking fun. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. See you guys next time. Just like nouns, with verbs, talking about something verbish. Just like nouns, when we want to start
frustrating.